Hello everybody, welcome back as ever to Building Blocks, where we program Minecraft mods live on camera and watch as things inevitably go quite wrong. Hopefully no such occasion today, but let's start with what I have been up to, because I haven't had, I didn't stream last week because I was a smidge under the weather, not for any potential reason. I realize that's a thing I should probably state, like, up front, given that we do live in plague. It's just my well-being is heavily tied to my sleep, and my sleep is heavily tied to my well-being. So there's a bit of there's a bit of a cycle there. So bleh. But we worked on scarecrows, and we got them working quite happily. They're doing very well, I note. We also now have full proper textures for both the burnt scarecrow, which happens when they are struck by lightning, as well as the burnt hay bale. I'm not 100% happy with how the burnt hay bale looks. You can also tell it also gives off particles, but it's not the worst thing in the world. Let me just fix up chat there. I think it's good, and you can uncraft this into some wheat. Not enough to remake it, and you can't craft it anyways, but, you know, it's there for decoration, mostly. There's been a bug identified with the most current version of various equipment, which basically means that if you try to have it in the same pack as JEI and the like, then it will just plain crash. It will just not run pretty much at all. That, I believe, judging by the error reports, is related to custom recipes for things like the mixer and the centrifuge and the alembic, and consequently I need to do a whole ton of behind the scenes, very dull kind of work to get that to actually work properly. So just bear that in mind if you like knowing how to craft things in general, I guess. Otherwise, recipes for these have been fully generated. There is a bunch, you can check them out, that kind of thing. And oh, let me see, what else was there? Yeah, I mentioned that. Those are things I'm gonna try and implement later. Yeah, I finished up all of the work on the notepad. It's not my best texture work, I'll freely say, but turns out this is more or less exactly what Bibliocraft did when they made their clipboard. So it's fine. It's fine to break the law that everyone else is breaking. But yeah, so we've now got our icons, we've got our lines, we've got our title, and all of that stuff is happily stored and displayed in the tooltip. So we can now happily just move through all of our stuff and know exactly what it is that we've got left to do and such. I love it. It's so wonderful. I wish I had this in various oddities, but oh well. The next thing that I've done is inside of various oddities, where we will be for most of tonight, I expect. So let's have a quick look there. Shouldn't take too long to switch. It's nice. It is so nice. It is so nice. Like, full disclosure, I'm autistic, but I probably also have ADHD, or at least ADD, attention deficit disorder, which it's the less bouncing off the walls kind of version, and that makes it frequently very hard for me to remember everything that I need to do at the time that I need to be doing it. So having something that's just like, here is an item that I can write down all of the things that I need to do, like the next time I log on or whatever, and I can just like tick through them as I go. It's like, oh, so good. But anyways, booting up for various oddities. You can maybe guess what I've been up to judging by the class I've currently got open, but we'll see in a hot minute. Also, I guess really handy for just, like, if you're playing with a group of people and you're all, like, tackling on, like, a big project of some description. It's just like, okay, next time I log on, I'll work on the cobblestone generator, and then you just, like, tick that off in your, like, your notepad, and then you can just, like, leave the notepad in a chest or on an item frame or something. It's like, okay, they finished off the cobblestone generator, so I'll do the next thing in the line, which is compression or whatever, I don't know. It's like, it's so good. It's so good. I don't think that the clipboard as we know it existed in the Middle Ages and whatnot, but I imagine there was something similar. I imagine there was something similar probably in Mesopotamia. Okay, I'm just gonna stare at the sun for this exact moment. So let's see, species, templates, list. We have a couple of new ones. So the new ones that we have gained are winged and reptilian. And insectile, by the by. So, winged is very simple. It pretty much just gives you the flight ability. Reptilian's a bit more complicated, insectile is a bit more complicated, but if we click on them, we can now actually get the information from them, and that includes these preconditions. Now, preconditions are must be this tall to enter. Effectively. That is a precondition. Your height value must meet a certain threshold, or else you are not allowed in. These are a way for us to check if a given creature, with all of its other details, is applicable for a given template. It is not currently used, because templates and whatnot are still in a very, like, how do I put this, dev kind of mode. So we prefer to allow it at the moment for anybody to apply anything whenever, as long as they have access to the command, at the very least. But later on, for instance, we can use these preconditions to say...
Wow, 6. Dabbing in the chat 6 times.
Thank you for that, Aluka. Nope, my bones don't go that far. Oh well. So in future, for instance, when a zombie kills a creature, we can look up the zombie template, check with the preconditions if that creature is valid for the zombie template, and then apply it if it is. So players killed by zombies could become undead, for instance. Which does mean that they'll lose a lot of stuff and start burning in sunlight. But that is a thing that we can do. The bits? Oh yes, thank you Esper for the 69 bits. It was very nice. Yeah, so that's fun. And later on, when we actually get it working on the species select screen, so if I just bring that up, we could actually theoretically have, because we have these stars that indicate how powerful a species is and such. What we could do is have the server have a configured value for, say, power 4, if you wanted a fairly decently powerful kind of server base. And everyone can pick whatever templates, whatever combination of species and templates they like, as long as it's 4 or less stars total. Pretty nice. Most of these are zeros, so yeah. Pretty good, pretty good. Except for Green Dragon, which is a 5. And then that would mean that we could just, like, let players pick whatever the hell. So, yeah. Patrons of Line, be careful going in. Yes, if you're a patron of me and you have custom creature types set, there'll be a button down here which will ask you if you want to retain them or lose them for whatever types are associated with your species. Because Cam made that mistake today. But okay, on to the next thing, which is why I'm presently surrounded by a cloud, effectively. Which is, there is an ability, which is granted, I believe, by, let's see, info, I think it's granted by Reptilian, actually. Yes, sent. This allows you to track by smell, which means that you can follow a creature's like scent trail to try and find where they are, that kind of thing. Particularly powerful ones mean you can actually like even identify if something is there but invisible. And it is currently it's a toggled ability, but this is just happening to like try and mark positions as to where I have been recently. These are actual scent markers. And that's what we're working on today, because we need to take them from being just a cloud to... Oh, Sakura's also made that mistake? Oh dear. Well, yeah, we need to take it from being a cloud to being something you can actually use. So let's have a quick look at all that. There's all the preconditions going in there. We can ask for specific abilities to be present or absent. We can ask for any combination, more or less, of types. It's pretty sweet. I like it. I did well on that. But let's see, if we go to Save Data Sense Manager, there we are. This is just the foundational stuff. It's very simple. It is nearly 400 lines, so I may have gotten a little bit overboard there. Thanks for that, Dusty. So all of them have, like, this is a marker. This is one of those clouds. And it has a duration, and that just gets ticked down every single time, every single tick of the game, to eventually be 0, and then it's removed entirely. It has a position, so we know where that's going to be. And it has a type, so we know what kind of super type of creature left this particular marker. In my case, Fae, for instance. In Nipty's case, Dragon, probably. That kind of thing. In Dave's case, possibly undead. Who knows these days? And it can it can decline faster, so the sense can be harder to follow if it's raining or if it was going through water at the time. That kind of thing. All fairly straightforward. If two of them are together, like close enough range, then they can be merged. So they both get removed and just create something in their midpoint that's gonna last even longer, so on and so forth. Here's all of the stuff that just synchronizes for the most part, and also causes the actual like particles to show up. If we look up here, that's where all the particles are. We're gonna get rid of that. That's temporary. There. Here we have the actual placement. This is extremely temporary. We're going to be changing that in the next, like, 20 minutes. Because currently what happens is, at a set rate, the server just places these markers where all the players are. And this is a problem for a couple different reasons. The first is that it's only on players. So the only thing that you could use Scent to track right now would be players, because they're the only things that leave them. But 95% of the time, if you're trying to track something, it's going to be a mob rather than a player. So we need to actually have multiple different things behind them, and there is a lot of work I've put in already to try and ensure that we don't just swamp the server with a whole ton of scent markers from just every single thing. Not a lot of which is in place at the moment, but, you know, nonetheless. So, we are going to be trying to expand this away from just players to a whole ton of stuff. Players, persistent mobs, and any mobs within a certain range of a player, so that you should, within reason, be able to track basically anything you want. Anything you're interested in, effectively. The second thing is that because this is done by the server, it happens, like, all of the scent markers are placed at the same times. So if one of them dies because it's just like expired, a whole bunch around it probably will do the same thing. So we want it to be a bit more dynamic, when it be up and down, that kind of thing, so things are different strengths and such. And the only real way to do that is to have the mobs do it themselves. So, yeah. Redeeming squats due to no changing emotes for this Halloween. I don't have an artist, Esper. But, okay. I'll do this. There we go. Okay, so yeah. I don't know exactly what Dusty has against my left arm, but here we go. So yeah, we're going to start off by changing it from being applied by the server itself to being applied by the player entity, so that we can do it at a bit more of an irregular rate. And that will mean that our trails are... there we go. Are both more cohesive, so that we can actually follow them a bit more reliably, as well as that they feel more non-rigid. They don't feel like they're on a grid or such, or on a specific scheduled kind of timed countdown kind of thing, which should also be good. And we'll do that by making them randomly, but within a fairly short rate, actually place the markers. Okay. And then we'll work on visuals, so that we can actually properly follow them, even if we have only just encountered them, or such. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Phew. Oh yes. So you know, one of the larger parts, of course, of making a species for various oddities is to try and break it down to what are the benefits, how powerful is it, what effect does it give you. Turns out, staring at me this entire development period, more or less since I moved here, is this book. Savage Species, Dungeons & Dragons 3.5. Which does exactly that for about a half dozen different species. Kinda wish I'd noticed that sooner. So there's a bunch in there that I'm gonna be trying to add. But one of the recurring things that these species have is the scent ability. So working on that. Okay. Step 1. We need to mix into player entity. Or more specifically, we might need to mix into living entity, but I think we can use player entity. Let's have a look. See, there's tick. Is there there's not a living tick, is there? I don't think they have a living tick. Oh, they do. Good. Okay, that means we can crack into that. Very good. Have a copy arriving in a few days. Ooh, very lucky on eBay. Good price. Yeah, it's a fun book, I will say. Like, it even has a section on how to become a monster, which is just chef's kiss for me. Okay. Right. Living tick. It's just a void, so it doesn't need anything in there. Those are both booleans. I think it's V for void. Okay, good. Okay. That gets us a nice thing there. So we've got two things to check. We know we're a player entity, so that part's fine. But the next thing to check is, are we server-side or client-side? To do that, we need an entity. The witch says that's nice, dear. Okay, player entity equals little bit of casting trickery here. There. If player get world dot is remote return, we are only interested in doing this server side. Okay, currently our markers are placed every 10 seconds, which is not very good. So we are going to need to say more than like 2 seconds, lower than 4 generally. So we probably want to have an actual value in here. And that's where things get a little bit more difficult, because the mixins like this can't add values, as it were. So we need to use an accessor. Like so. And that needs to be an interface, but I will fix that in a moment. Needs to be an interface so that we can actually cast the player entity as that. Ticks to sent. Trying to remember how exactly I did this. I know I've got an accessor elsewhere, so let me just quickly bring that up. Flip, wrong one. That one. In fact, the accessor I'm thinking of is for the recipes. Right there. Yep, just get recipes. Item entity mixin, does that have something in it? No. Ah, convert to guano timer. I can put that. Okay, good. I don't actually need this then. But also I can just use server player entity, that's just occurred to me. That would do the trick. And then I already know this is going to be there. Good, good, good. Okay, see what private int sent timer. And let's initialize it at -1. Okay. So rand equals player dot get world dot rand. Okay. If sent timer is less than 0, then sent timer equals reference values second times 2 plus, yeah, times 2 for 2 seconds minimum, plus rand next int values ticks per second times 2, so between 2 and 4 seconds, in short. Let's see. If we can't just make that. There we go. else if minus minus sent timer equals 0, then we're going to do the world here. So let's see, sense manager manager.add sent marker, and we need to figure out the player's local position as well as their creature types, which is something we're actually kind of already doing inside of the sense manager at the moment, by virtue of the fact that this is all done server side. So if you somehow don't have one, then we'll just skip you, because apparently you have no scent to follow. By the way, the reason that we're doing this by super types is because if we did this by each entity, you would frequently find trails that lead to nowhere, because you'd follow them and then the mob that was at the end would probably have despawned or such. And if we had it as being every single creature adds their own unique trail, then there's no chance of them merging, which means that you've got as many trails active in the world as there are creatures. Like, not just players, every single sheep, every single pig, every single creeper, every single zombie. So it's a metric to make it be, yes, you could get misled by following the wrong creature that has the right super types, but also the server doesn't fall over instantaneously. So, yeah. Making this thing lean and mean was kind of a priority. Okay, so the manager adds the marker, and then it should reset the set timer. There. Okay, so now we go over to here, we take that over. Now we don't much care about that. But we do want to actually be limiting how frequently we are doing that. The server's going to be decaying them anyways, but we just want to make sure that we don't massively overcomplicate things a little bit. So there we go. Refresh rate is still every 10 seconds, but it's now 10 seconds until it, like, synchronizes and tells you everything, it, like, gets rid of all the dead things. The client also does the decay part. So, once it defines that a marker should logically be dead, then it will stop showing it. But in the case of the server is God, effectively. Okay. So now we add this to our list of mix-ins and see what breaks. Okay. Let's see, do I want to... Yeah, we'll be able to see it, either way. And if we see no sense whatsoever, then we know something went wrong. Or if the game crashes, we know something went wrong. So the next part, of course, is to add this a mob entity, where we check if it is an entity that is persistent and ideally has AI, or is within a certain radius of any near player. So if you lose track of a particular mob, for instance, maybe something you're trying to keep a track of, that kind of thing, you'll still be able to find them by scent. And yeah, man, these markers are really wibbly, aren't they? Okay, we're not seeing anything. Bad start. We should be seeing markers. So what's going wrong? know that I have a scent, because otherwise we wouldn't have seen smoke at the start of the stream. The unstated third possible flaw. Nothing happens. Which is technically the worst kind of bug. Because it doesn't create a log for you to actually follow and, like, analyze. It just doesn't do anything. Okay, looks like we're not running Living Tick. Because otherwise we'd be seeing it down here. So let me just quickly check to make sure I've gotten the right incantation, I guess, for there. Now the only one that list is from Mob Entity. But of course, players aren't a mob entity. So we might have to make this a little bit more complicated. But I do have the callouts, correct, so there's that. But I know players have one. Do server players not have one? I guess that's the next question, isn't it? They don't. Right. If a particular class doesn't have that function literally inside of its class, then you can't use it that way, so we do have to make it player entity. Okay. Well, that's fine. We already had something for that. Even if it extends. But now we just have to make sure that we check if it's actually not remote. There. Okay, let's try that again. And there's a big problem. Okay, what happened? Oh, I didn't remove server player. Right. If it doesn't find a mixin that you've stated in here, it'll just crash. Which is a little bit indelicate, shall we say? A little bit clumsy, but... So right now we're just trying to vary up the amount of markers being placed. We're still limited at 256, which is fairly small. We were doing work with the settlement code for making changeling hives. We frequently had several tens of thousands of points to deal with and cycle through. So I'll probably make that a configurable thing as well. So if you have a beefier server, you can increase the number of active scent markers, and then the odds, the higher that is, of anyone finding a trail that leads to nowhere effectively go down. Okay. Added a scent marker, added a scent marker. And there we go, they're popping in. In about 10 seconds or so, we should be able to actually see them. Yeah, there they go. Okay. So clearly there is still a little bit of finesse to do to this, because we've got a ton of scent markers that we're just not seeing and they're all popping in at once, whereas we want them to be more live. But that's good progress. So if we want to do that, we can just take that. So now every 10 seconds it does its major thing and tells you about everything that's going on, but also if something actually causes it to change. It'll just update the next tick, which should mean we effectively have live view. That's more packets being sent, but it's not necessarily all that big of a concern for us. What we could do if we wanted to reduce the size, at least, of the packets being sent, we could just make a packet just about add this marker. So, yep. Scents are happily popping in now. Very good. Okay. So now we need to actually display them in a way that makes them not quite as obtrusive and significantly more useful. But I will quickly throw together a packet to add a marker. So let's see. Since they are, just grab you as a base point. Okay, and let's see, we can write a scent marker to MBT. There we go, which makes this much simpler, actually. Correct, yes. Okay. So now we just need to give the scent manager a wholesale add function. Can we set the value of the world, or is that final? That is a final. Okay, that is a slight problem. Actually, not that huge of a problem, because we can just get the world. There. the mobs, do it that way, but we can't just send a packet that does this. If we just want to be adding one, which reduces the bandwidth involved. But I'm going to need to know actually what the marker is. Sakura needs assistance. I'm a little bit busy at this exact moment. Give me a second. How dire is it? Hey Zen. I'll be back in about 10 minutes. Evidently I need to go and, like, help Sakura, and also take my first break of the evening. But when we get back, we'll be continuing to work on making more or less everything smelly. Smelly enough that you could find it by your nose. So, see you then after my quick break. Go grab yourself a snack, get your meds, that kind of thing. Welcome back, everybody. It'll be a nice little break there. So, just before we left off, we implemented a quick, cheap little packet which just adds a scent marker to the client. That is fired off by the scent manager whenever a new marker is added by, for instance, the player, and everything else works just fine. Now there's a slight detriment here, which is that when we merge markers, they won't be killed client side, because they're only removed client side if they're removed on the server. So that might be a slight problem, but it should fix itself within like 10 seconds, so it's not a huge concern there. And if anything, that just gives you slightly a better idea of where things were just like mucking about, that kind of thing. Actually, did I add scent marker? Just adds a scent marker right there, so it. I'm trying to think. Well, that if we use the merged version, like that, it's simple enough. Let's just swap that for new marker, forget marker added, and then we know that the server is doing the same thing that the client does when it gets that marker. There, parity, yay. Okay, so now we've got our markers turning up, and they are still just rendered as clouds of campfire smoke. Not dreadfully useful, could go either direction, hard to say for sure, so we're going to try, and first I'm going to increase their default duration, because it's, well, 15 seconds, a new one gets placed every, like, 2 to 4, that's probably fine for the time being. Although, however long these last does greatly and significantly affect how long a trail can be before you're able to, like, before you are capable of losing it, effectively. So, there's that to bear in mind. Let me just tweak my chroma key here. Ooh, not that direction. That'll do, I think. Yeah, okay. So, the next thing we need to do is actually do proper, like, visualization of these markers. Because right now, particles, the best you can tell is there was something that smelled here. So we need to do something a little bit more. First, we can do again the player, the local player. Now that's a little tricky inside of just Sense Manager itself, but we can do that elsewhere. The Obus client, that's less of a concern. Just bring ourselves all the way down here. So let's see, public static void on render sense. What kind of thing would this be? I'm not 100%. Let's do it with a world update, I guess. Lit tick, build tick, not sure. But suffice to say, for the moment, we're going to be moving all of that. Mr. Snitch, there we go. Into here. Let's see, world. Let's just store that because we're probably going to need it. Right, I made those private, didn't I? Okay. Well, let's add some getters. Now, I did contemplate having data inside of the markers that tells you if a specific named creature, be it a player or named mob or some such, is smelled inside of it. But the question then is, how do we display that? We could store its name, but that doesn't tell you anything about what kind of creature it was, that kind of thing. So I can smell, like, also just imagining that you find like a random scent in the middle of nowhere, and it's like, I can smell an undead named Jules. Never met Jules in my life, but I think that's their name. So it's we need the duration as well. Okay. There we go. Okay. Build tick events, I think, or client tick events. There is a tick event for this. We want client, I guess. Okay. This is again just using the particles, but now it's doing it exclusively client side, so we can do other things there. So nothing happens if the world is remote. And then I'll dig out the code for rendering the boundaries of settlements, because that's so stable, and we'll start trying to actually join these points together. Because, whilst we don't have an actual mat of saying, this point connects to this point, connects to this point, this is the direction that they were laid in, that kind of thing, what we do have is their duration. And we know what the duration of... We know from that how old each one is. Hence, we can determine linearity. We can determine where these different points lie on a timeline. And, if we presume that stronger scents are always going to be newer, and older scents are always going to be, weaker scents are always going to be older, then we can draw lines between the points, and that'll give us a trail that will suggest at the very least which direction something went. Which is more or less how actually following a scent in reality works. You just go towards whichever's stronger, or if you're trying to flee, you go whichever is weaker. Okay. And we had a problem. What happened? Packet add sent had a oh, I didn't put that into the... Yep, I didn't put that into the packet handler. My bad. So it had no idea how to handle that. That's a 15 seconds still isn't really very long. So clients know about new sets at the same time the world does, but the world, every 10 seconds, clears out everything else. Okay. There we go. So we can kind of make it out that the successive ones have lower particle density, and that is intentional with these original default graphics. But now the code for doing that is entirely client-side. Good. Okay. Next one. Player entity. Player. It's that one. So we need to use ability registry dot. Let's see. Get ability by name from the player. Ability sent dot registry name. Okay, so if sent equals null or not sent dot active, then return. So if you don't have the ability or you don't currently have it turned on, none of that happens. So if we do that, we should then actually have control over whether those visuals are active. Because you probably don't want to be standing around in your house surrounded by like lines showing where you've been recently. You probably don't want your own particle trail. Okay, so I do not have the scent ability, therefore I cannot see anything. Let's see, abilities, dev, add, scent. And let's activate that. And now all of a sudden we can see these things, but if I turn it back off, the particles go away and then everything stops. But there we go. Obviously this is the secondary problem of using particles to display this, is that they take an age to turn off. But hurrah, we can actually tell where everything is. Very good, very good. So okay. We can definitely tell where we've been. So, let's see, there's definitely a thing for rendering lines and such in settlement render. There you are. So I need to join these points together. So for every point, we need to collect within a certain range around them every point that is weaker than them, that has a lower duration than they do. Or a higher one, whichever direction we want to go. It doesn't matter too much at that point. So, let's see. Call that neighbors. that not what we had it here? Oh, it is just fully event. Okay. Right. Okay. Let's also change that to being its own thing, because I don't know that I necessarily want that to be public. Okay. Now we do have a thing that checks for, well, that gets nearby sets, but it's only gets one, and it's for, whenever we add one that might overlap an existing one. So, okay, well, firstly, we don't need that too much, but secondly, we can just go here. Get neighbors within, vector 3D, position, double maximum distance. Let's just make it a send marker, that'll save us a bit of trouble here. Okay. So for, let's see, sent marker in sent, and, oh, yep, let's sent instead. If sent dot position does not equal marker position, which is to say, are they not, if they are not the same thing, and sent dot position to, let's see, is within distance, is that a thing? So it is. Very handy, actually. Our given position, max dist, then add that to our list. Straightforward. So neighbors equals manager get neighbors of marker, and our maximum distance we'll say is, we'll say 6 blocks for the moment, at least. Okay. Let's see. There is a thing in here for rendering the rooms. Render settlement rooms, there you are. Render room, there you are. Ah, it's part of the world renderer. Okay, that's gonna require some deeper digging. For right now, let's try and get lines in between these things. So then, every neighbor, if neighbor dot duration is lower than marker dot duration, do the thing. Which for the moment exactly we'll just say is spawn particles in between, because it'll take me significantly longer to show any progress if I'm just actually figuring out the drawing. Whereas we need to actually figure this part out. So, let's say, trying to think here. things, but give me a moment. We also need to check that that scent type matches the marker's type, because otherwise we'll get ones that are completely unrelated connecting together. Okay. So that should mean that we get particles drawing lines between these things now. Our thing next will be to actually just make this work otherwise. Let's see, client, take an event, just change that back for a hot second. Okay, shouldn't cause any trouble. Just in case. Just as well. Don't want to cause any crashes from a visual thing. But okay. So by following, I'm going to use a fancy term here, gradient descent, we'll be able to take our random smattering of points, determine what order they were laid in, and from that derive a path. Still particles, but should be mildly more useful. Just gonna meander about here and hopefully we'll see something happen. Oh, I forgot you guys were over here. Hi, how are you doing? Okay, now these need to be within 6. Oh, yeah, we got lines being drawn there. So yeah, now we can see. Now we're starting to actually see like meaningful information here. Very good, very good. So yeah, now we can actually get some degree of an idea of which path we took. Not a good path, mind you, but next thing we can do is tidy that up a little bit by saying we only want the closest, closest neighbor who is also or the neighbor whose duration is closest to 2 hours. Rather than every single one. And that'll mean that we only connect 1 to 1. I don't know if that's entirely necessary though. The question is how, the closer in it gets, the less frequently they'll join together. But the further we go, the more of that web pattern we get, which is arguably less useful. What we could do is change the range. So let's say we only want it to be 4. Right? No, I feel like that's still a negative here. How do I can make it so that these things connect? But I need to make these things connect, but they need to be clearly showing actual, like, meaningful. Which one is strongest? Maybe that's just it. Maybe I just point these things to the strongest neighbor. Neighbors are going to always be lower than them. So maybe that's it. What do we think? I'll increase that to 8 for the time being. And then we want to try and find our neighbor of our neighbor of the strongest scent. Now, theoretically, I can figure that out by sorting them, but since we're only looking for 1 at the moment, that's not a huge concern. So let's see. Also, this line is now irrelevant because we already checked that, I think. Do we? Do we check that? No, we don't. Okay, something to bear in mind. I already used... Yep, I already used the center building name. Oh boy, okay. Call it nay, I guess. If nay.duration is lower than marker.duration. Oh yes, whilst you're all here, I presume, there is an ability I need to implement. That there are 2 major ways I could go about implementing it. The first is that I can add an ability that gives you an item the first time that it's added to you. So, for instance, an ability that gives you a cosmetic tail item, for instance, depending on your species or your templates or such. Reptilian, for instance, by the book, does give everything a tail. The second is that I don't give an item, but I render you as though you had it and had it equipped. Now, the benefit of that is that it will never break, you will never be able to lose it, it will not take up slots in your inventory, that kind of thing. The downside is that you won't be able to dye it in the case of cosmetics and such, which could mean that the tail that you are rendered as having looks dramatically different to your skin. So, which of these options do I go with? Do I make an ability that gives you an item? Or do I make an ability that renders an item on you? You decide. Okay, if neighbor equals null, or neighbor.duration is lower than nay.duration. There. But it needs to be a 4 each because, yeah. There. So that should mean that we only connect to the strongest neighbor within 8 blocks. Bearing in mind, neighbors, by definition, must be lower than our marker. So if it's stronger than our marker, we won't connect them. That should give us fairly clear direction. Let's find out. Actually, just to be real quick, I'm going to add 0.5 to that. So we're trying to... Effectively, right now it can go very low, the slope of durations. We're trying to like make it more like that, so that you can actually see a bit clearer where the direction was. And we also only do it to 1, so less of forming a grid. And the next step is replacing the particles for is replacing the particles for lines drawn like that. Oh, there's Sugar Cube. Hey, Sugar Cube. Okay, we're still getting... That's a bit better. We do occasionally get that happening, but we are getting a definite line now, which is what we're looking for. I'm not really very clear on exactly why we're getting both functions here. But okay. That is progress, though. Okay, so what was our thing here? If neighbor's duration is lower than our marker's duration, okay, meaning it's the direction we want to go, and either neighbor is null or neighbor's duration is lower than that duration, which is to say we're looking for the strongest thing that's lower than us within 8 blocks. How did that end up giving us still grid? That's my question here. Neighbor duration lower than market duration, that part's a given. Remove that one variable. Find the strongest neighbor. Okay. Render line from marker to neighbor. There. Okay. Did we check the closest one? Do we have some kind of variable there of closest, strongest? Some ratio? I'm not sure. What do we think? This is a very delicate balancing act here, but we need to get this part working in order to have a good idea of what the renders should look like as well. There's a different thing, isn't there? Instead of campfire, cozy smoke, let's have it be something a little bit easier to tell. Crit. Sure, that'll do the trick. That'll just be a bit easy to distinguish with the smoke. We only select one neighbor. We select the neighbor with the highest duration. We could check distance if they're equal. So we select the closest one if there's two that are equal, but that should be very rare. Like, that's down to like a ticks per, like that seems unlikely. So we need some kind of comparison here, don't we? A sort function, effectively. So, return. At least if we do this, we can actually get the whole thing. So int duration A equals cent A duration, and int duration B equals cent B duration. Okay. So duration A greater than duration B, then 1, otherwise duration A lower than duration B, and -1, otherwise 0. Okay, that 0 part is where we actually factor in distance if they're equal. So let's see, we need to get distance. Okay. Dist A lower than dist B, then 1, otherwise dist A greater than dist B, -1, otherwise 0. Okay. And then we just get the first one, which should never be null if we're not empty, but who knows? Maybe we removed all of them. Okay. Let's see how that works for us. This, I realize, is tremendously unreadable. But I promise you it has significance. And hopefully we'll see what that significance is in a hot second. Okay, let's see what we got. Here's a seasonally appropriate song, definitely not haunted by abstraction. Oop. We have a crash. How have we done that? A range check. Okay. Because neighbors was empty. Oh. Because it was the first one I did. Oh, that should be continue, not... That might be what's going on there. Wait, no, it's in its own thing here, so it's in a consumer rather than a for each, so that should be fine. But okay. In theory, we could add even more checks. So check, like we could exclude any markers that we can't draw a straight line to, for instance. But that would then theoretically mean that if you went around a corner fast enough, then your sense wouldn't, you would lose someone's scent trail that way. So, Okay, should be fine now. I like the way it's changing over time. That's interesting to see. It's definitely easier to see the lines now, that's for sure. It's fascinating to see them change as well. They're all spawned with the exact same duration, but not at the same time. Maybe I just let it web. That's the next question. Maybe I just let it web. Just let them all join together. As long as they're going downstream, as it were. There's a fort. I didn't leave. I don't think I included something for if they're dead or not. Inside of here. Just include that. There. Okay. Let's just let them go as long as they're going downwind, I think. Let's just see. There's a lot of questions here that we need to draw on. It's like, do we just have them all interconnect? Do we have them only go downstream? If we have them go downstream, then we have this weirdness where they connect to one. Like, if you've got on a loop, for instance, then they'll go to that one, they'll cut out the whole loop there. The one closest to our duration here should be the one that we connect to, but... Let me increase the range here as well. To 16 blocks. Actually, what is the walk speed of Steve Minecraft? Let's see. Walking over flat duration is a range of 4.3 blocks per second. We've got a max of 4 seconds between scent markers. So 4 times 4. There. Okay. So we need to closest without going over. Well, we know we're not going to go over because of that. So if we then just sort. Oh, I wonder if I've gotten these back to front. In that case. Who knows? Who knows? Okay, just leave that out for the moment. And we are looking for the lowest value, or the highest value, I guess. I think. I can never remember if it needs to be 1 or -1. If, like, which side of the equation that puts them on. Should we put a limit, maybe? So say they have to be within a certain range? Like 4 seconds? Or however long scent range is? So remove all of the ones that are newer, but also all of the ones that are more than 4 seconds old. Meaning they couldn't possibly have been connected. So that'll remove all the ones that couldn't possibly have been neighbors, because they were placed too far apart. And then we sort by durations, we get the one with the highest duration, and that should mean we only ever get the one that it probably is actually meant to be connected to. Of course, we're not factoring in other things here, like maybe it's a biome that doesn't really hold scents very well, or maybe it's really windy today. That kind of thing. But simulating wind in Minecraft is a headache in and of itself that I am not touching. I also don't necessarily enjoy the idea that somebody could, like, flee into a specific neighboring biome just to, like, evade being smelled. Okay. So we've now got a much bigger range. If I come back on it, is it going to move? It is not, by the looks of things. I think we have dead ones. I think that might be what's going on here. But we are already checking for if it's dead. So that doesn't seem right. Marcus, there you are. Okay. There's a special thing in here for witches and whatnot. Is it literally just called witch? Yes, it is. Okay. So we'll put witch markers at every point where a marker is, whether or not it's actually got any neighbors. That'll tell us if we've got dead ones and such. That should show us where all the particles are. This is getting very fine-tuny, I know, but... it's all in the aim of making these things actually useful. Okay, so there's one. There's one. And let's bring it on loop. Yeah, it merged. That's what happened. So why are the merged ones not connecting? I know why. I have just realized why the merged ones aren't connecting. It's because when they merge, they get given more... they get given more duration, because the scent is eventually stronger. Okay. So how do we amend that? We could just make it not do that. At least for the time being, we can make it just not do that. Okay, we'll figure this out, and I'll be back in about 10 minutes. See you then. Welcome back, everybody, to the final hour of our evening, and we are currently trying to puzzle through how to make our things link together. And we discovered that because every time a scent merges with an existing scent nearby, it gets more time, it lasts longer because the scent is stronger. And my original thought was maybe we just turn that off and give them like really long durations, but I think a better approach to that will actually be to invert our actual, like, our sorting and such. So that instead of going from high to low, we go from low to high. And that should mean that the highest ones don't connect to anything, but everything lower than that will point at the highest one. Should being the operative word. So we get rid of that entirely. We remove if it is lower than or equal to our duration. And then we just need to invert these, more or less. Okay. That should mean that the lowest ones point to the highest ones rather than the highest ones pointing to the lowest ones. Which is technically backwards, but depending on how we render it through, it should work just fine. Either way, this effectively means you'll find the weakest end of the trail, and it'll lead you to the strongest end, which is where you want to go, because that's probably where the person is. The end goal, of course, is to connect these with actual lines, rather than particles, but we need to have actual logic for what connects to what first. So let's see how this goes. Okay, so we've definitely got some trouble, by the looks of it. We need to get the one that's closest, and I suspect we aren't. But okay, we are very close, on the bright side. Remove its duration is lower than or equal to. So we get all the neighbors, that's all the weaker ones, we're going to point to the strongest one, so that's fine. So actually, this part was already good. Or do we... We're looking for the weakest one out of the strongest ones. We're looking for the weakest, strongest one. So... maybe we just give them a time. That might honestly work best if we just give them a time. Not sure. What do we think? If we give scent markers a time, then we know the exact timeline in which they were actually placed, rather than relying on the duration. Maybe that's what we do. Not sure. Not sure. But okay. For now, let's just run that. See how that looks. Okay. Marker's down. Marker merged to there. Oh, that went weird. Okay. That's definitely getting... we're definitely getting some errors there. Okay, so there's definitely still some stuff here that we need to figure out. Where on earth is my cursor gone? Ah, way over there. That's where it's gone. Okay. Do we think we could reliably follow this to wherever? I think we sort by distance and then we get the first one that's actually lower. I think that's probably the best thing we can do here. That'll give us a little bit more reliability. Okay. So, let's see. If dist A is lower than dist B, return 1. Else, if dist B is greater or is lower than dist A, return -1. Else, we do the comparison of duration. Okay. So then we need to find the first one in that list that has higher strength than the one we're looking at. So if nay.duration is greater than marker's duration, neighbor equals nay, break. There. Okay. Otherwise, we just get the closest one. Right. Which effectively means that rather than strictly pointing at the one that came after them, they're pointing at the closest scent. That's also really strong, that's also stronger than them. Which again is logically the part that's most likely to lead to where you're going. Who you're trying to follow. Who or what, I should say. That is a very big range, I feel, though. Oh boy, yeah. That's not linking together properly at all, I think. Let's see, can I wander about a bit and have this trail follow me? Wait, I accidentally walked into the nether, that's not helpful. Okay. Well, I guess I'm over here now. Okay, we're just walking, It's relatively okay if it gets messy in tight confines. That does look like it's reliably showing which way I went. So maybe that's fine. think you could reasonably reliably follow that. And then as I hang around in more or less the same area, we end up getting points at the same place. So they merge together. Okay, yeah, let's take that, at least for the time being. I can figure out a better way later. Like, maybe there's a staleness value, which is how long it's actually been there. Or something, I don't know. Versus how long it's actually going to last. But okay. So we've got our point. We've got our neighbor. And from there, and from our current position, our marker position, to our neighbor's position, we need to actually draw a line. So, let me bring up draw bounding box in here. Because this will draw purely in straight lines. I don't need to actually follow what it says. I just need to figure out how in the hell to actually make this work. So let's see, the vertex builder is just lines. Okay. Let's also look at the renderer for Guardians. Because Guardians have a beam that they have to draw as well. And oh god, they didn't even put it into a function. Oh goody. Oh goody. Okay, right. Oh lord, this is bad. I think I see what it's doing, kind of. It's not even, most of this isn't even deobfuscated. Oh joy. Okay. Right. Very painful coding, yes. Okay, we're just gonna try and get what we can, I guess. Do I have MC started here? Apparently not. Okay. Okay, that gets us the vertex builder, which is important for drawing vertices, as one might presume. And we need a matrix stack, which I guess we can get from the event. I'm hoping. Oh, we're on client tick event still, aren't we? Render world last event. There you are. Okay. So matrix stack dot push and pop, just so that we don't interfere with anything else. That more or less just nests it in its own little thing. We'll comment that out for the moment, as well as that. Okay. Set our line width, and then we need to also reset the line width. And now we need to figure out getting a tessellator going effectively. Joy. Joy, joy, joy. Okay. So that's the vertex builder. And then there's the we give it a position, and then that. Okay. Nothing here actually says to draw, I'm noticing. Which is a little odd. Yeah, nothing actually says to draw, so I can only presume it actually just draws it by rote, as it were. Okay then, right. So let's set a point at the thing and a point half a block above it. And I think that'll work. I think. Let's rename that little bleh. There we go. Buffer.position marker pos.x marker pos.y and marker pos.z. And let's color that. Let's see. I'm guessing this is 0 to 1, so let's go with that. Okay. And let's get another point directly above that. Presumably these are D's, but let's find out. They are. Good. Okay. That gives us an invisible red line of infinitely small distance. So then we want neighbor position. And we're going to color that purest green, hopefully. And opaque. I'm guessing here because graphics are my bane, to say the least. That's the wheel border, we don't care about that. Yeah, I don't see anything that actually draws, curiously enough. Well, let's find out, I guess. See if I've made anything happen here.
I'll tell you the truth.
Is there a function there that I'm blithely overlooking? Oh, no, actually there is. There absolutely totally is. I did not finish the vertices on these. That's kind of a significant thing. Okay, let's try that again. So the way those are written, we should more or less go blip, 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 blip. Hopefully. And that should create a gradiented line that goes invisible and red to opaque and green. But we'll see, because, again, I suck at this. And then later on, if this works at all, I can make it a bit more, dynamic. By creating, like, points in between that are shifted slightly around, so it's a wibbly line, that kind of thing. Okay. We should have seen something by now, surely. So we're missing something. Elements are drawn in the same vent, so we know that part works. So, what else happens here? Not seeing anything there. But maybe something happens before we color into room. Not a thing. Okay. So it's something to do in here. We have the box room. Ah. minus the positions. That's probably significant. And neighbor position. Not quite what I meant, but sure. So what's happening there is it was probably drawing them in the very far distance. And you've still got a problem with me? What's wrong? Why are you having issues there? Local variable marker position must be defined in an enclosing scope, must be final or effectively final. So because I didn't actually do the thing there. Okay, that's fine. Try to think how I fix that real quick. Effectively, I didn't care until I was down here changing it. Let's call that start. And then we can rename this to end. Okay. There. Okay. So that's partially, I guess, why the settlement boundaries move around as I move around. Rather than being where they should be. At all times. It's because partially head mobbing. Effectively. Which will also mean that we'll have the same problem with these, but it's less of a concern with them. Or actually, I suppose arguably it's more of a concern because you can see these in survival. Okay. Are we gonna see something now? Apparently not. Okay. Oh, wait, we got something. We had something there for a hot second. Yep, we have lines. They're not moving. They're moving with my screen, is the weird part. Okay. How is that even happening? How is that happening? Oh, I didn't give it a matrix. I just gave it coordinates. That might be it. That might be it. Buffer in is the vertex builder, yes. Ah, I need to give it that. Okay. Nope, you're still not happy with that. What's wrong? Because you don't take floats? No. What's your problem? Yeah, I think it's the float part. Okay. Yep, there we go. Okay. Right, that should hopefully actually put it in world. Fingers crossed. For literally anybody else, more or less, this should be easy. But for me, in specific, graphic coding sucks. But it's unavoidable at this particular stage. Okay, not moving with my camera anymore. So that's good. But also not actually rendering, not connecting. We're getting there, though. We're getting there. Let's tidy this up a little bit. Okay, so right now we've got two lines that are connected. They're connecting the verticals. They're not connecting the horizontals. So I guess I need to have those two on their own, as well as these two on their own. And that will hopefully mean that they're in the right places, but let's find out, I guess. This, I think, will just draw us a square. Like an outline, rather than an actual filled cube, but... You know, we're getting there. There's a thing in here drawing the world border, which is probably close. Probably close, but that's drawing a texture, which we are less concerned about. And the fact that these are 128 and, what, 256 there, suggests to me that that's not actually 0 to 1. Which is maybe the next part. Well, let's see if we have a box first. Okay, we definitely have something. Yep, we have lines drawing now. Tain't much, but it's there. Okay, right. We're getting there. I just need to figure out how to draw a like, actual, like, matte cube. Or matte, rectangle, more specifically. Okay. Oh, we don't need that anymore, that's for sure. Okay, so... what am I doing wrong here? Is lines literally the only render type I can get? No, okay. solid is probably more like it. I think. Maybe translucent, but for right now, let's go with solid. Quite why lines is this, like, its own special thing there? I don't know, but there it is. Okay, start, end, start. I think. No. Yes? No. Yes. No. So start at its actual position, start 0.5 up, end 0.5 up, and actual position. Okay. Let's find out what this will do if we use solid instead of lines. This will be like when I had to figure out how to do triangles for the ability menu. But yeah, if I use the actual marker points as being the lynch points, then I can just randomly generate a number of points in between and have the lines go to that, and it'll create things that are a bit more, Game crash? Game crash. Create things that are a little bit more aesthetic than rote straight lines. What happened? What happened? Not filled all elements of the vertex. Right. How many do you need? Jail mode, buffer size. Where's get solid here? Get solid over just returns that. Okay. Oh boy, I may need to talk to Flying about this. Because Lord knows I'm not good at it. Lines is literally 1? Does that mean I need 7 points? I guess it does. Leash uses 7. Watermask uses 7. Lightning uses 7. Both of them use 7. Lines is the only one that uses 1, as near as I can tell. Yeah. Does that mean I need 7 points? Well, let's check where that is used. Okay, I don't know why lines is the only public one and everything else is private. World Renderer uses it. For what? Blocks. Okay, that's not too bad. And the D values there are vectoring, okay. Is there translucent? Is that the part that's used for... Presumably that's the part that's used for other things. Okay. What am I doing wrong? That is the question. For right now, let's swap that back to lines. And see if we can at least make a rectangle shape. If it's 1, I'm guessing it needs to be drawn as 2 elements. I'm guessing that's like I'm guessing that's binary indexing. So when it says 1, it actually means two vertices. I'm not sure exactly on what the ordering would need to be for 8, but 8 makes more sense as a cube, at least. That's how many vertices are on a cube. But okay, we seem to have a line going. It's the wrong color, but it's a line, which is a start. And if I hit 1, it just turns off. There. So we only see those entirely now when they're actually when the ability is actually turned on, which is odd. I'm guessing the fact that they're way up above our head is an artifact of where we're getting our player position, but it's a start. So why? We're drawing. We should be logically drawing all of our points here properly. So why do we only see a line rather than literally anything else? That's the part I don't understand. Here we go. Blip, blip, and then blip, blip, and then blip, blip, and then blip, blip. What is yeah? The only one that actually has that is actually public is also given that. Okay. Fishron? For fishing. What? Fishing bobber. Fish renderer. This is a weirdly misnamed thing. Render entity static is used for the bounding box. Okay. Got 8 things in here now, so let's give that a shot. See how it feels about that. I don't think we'll get this perfected today, but when do we ever get anything perfected on the day? The fact that we've gotten this far is good enough. The fact that I'm drawing anything at the moment is good. Nope, we apparently still have too few vertices, I'm guessing. Yeah, not filled all elements of the vertex. What am I missing there? Don't know what I'm missing there, but it's clearly not working properly. Okay. I definitely don't think that I can figure out what's wrong with this in the next 6 minutes. Because Lord knows I suck at graphics, as I think I've just adequately demonstrated, if anything. So, I hope you've all enjoyed. Hopefully by next week I'll have something a little bit more fully formed and such. But, meanwhile, my next stream is on Thursday, probably finishing off the Pirates of the Caribbean Tall Tales in Sea of Thieves, which I will be happy to say goodbye to. Then, on Saturday, we have the Carousel, where I play some random games with patrons, talking about what videos came out this week and such. And then, on Sunday, the 31st, going pretty much all day, we have our annual Halloween Scream, which by popular demand, this year, will involve, oh boy, every single movie in the Alien quadrilogy. That's all 4 of them. That is over 8 hours of content there. So, look forward to me getting increasingly loopy as we watch some of the best and worst movies ever made, in terms of horror and classics and such. And then I'll be back for more of this on Tuesday, hopefully with something a little fleshed out that we can enjoy and maybe test, that kind of thing. But otherwise, any videos I make are over at youtube.com/comic. There was one that came out yesterday with a special guest star, 2 very special guest stars, really, but you've seen one of them already. And there should be, hopefully, fingers crossed, be another one for Saturday as well. Otherwise, everything I do is powered by you at patreon.com/lying. Hope you've all enjoyed, and I'll catch you all as ever